Hello and welcome to the O&M Stockroom. We're your hosts, Brian McGarry.
And Ken O'Malley.
Tonight is episode 27 of Complimentary Cinema. If you are new to the channel, Complimentary Cinema is a program where we review and discuss films you can watch for free that are available on YouTube. Please be warned, we discuss these films in detail, so consider this a full spoiler alert. So this is our second stab at recording this podcast. We actually had a power outage that knocked out most of our review, and we're just going to cut this one a little short this evening. This will be the Spaceballs short version. Normally we can blather on probably 45 minutes to an hour. Let's see if we can do it in 10.
Yeah, easily.
So Ken, how did we pick tonight's film?
So tonight's film is called The Wave. It is a Norwegian film. We did not realize that when we picked it out, and it worked out pretty well. The last Norwegian film we watched, we really enjoyed. So, it was promising. I even said at the beginning, if nothing else, we have good scenery. So,
I'll say this about a Norwegian film. Norway is gorgeous, and they really play it up in these films.
Yeah.
And this one's no exception. Well, I mean, granted, we've watched 2 Norwegian films, including this one, but I'm just going to assume that they're all that good.
Yeah.
So anyway, this film's from 2015. It was directed by a guy whose name I can't pronounce and starring a whole bunch of really fine actors whose names I also can't pronounce. There's lots of J's pronounced as Y's and that sort of thing, but you get the idea. They're great people.
So the condensed version of the story. We'll just give real condensed version of,
Well, we got to give a condensed version of the 3 primary criteria first,
okay.
Ken. Does this film meet our criteria of review for well-written, well-acted, and well-produced?
Yes. So those are the things.
So
this is a movie about a geologist who is moving on from watching, basically there's these huge crevice things on the side of the mountains in Norway that they have to watch because they could cause an avalanche that would cause a tsunami in the fjords. So this is like his job is the geologist is responsible for this one mountain. He decides he wants something but different for his family. He's going to go work in the oil business and move into the city and, have a whole new life.
But he can't tear himself away.
Yeah, it's still stuck in his mind and he's still concerned about it. So in the process of moving away with his family, some circumstances happen where some readings are coming up strange, and he's concerned that something is imminent happening with the mountain.
But nobody really believes him because you don't want to upset the tourist season, and it could really, money's important, right?
Yeah.
So they basically just brush him off, and then
they say we'll keep looking after it, but you should
we'll drill some more holes, we'll do some more tests, we'll keep an eye. It's not your problem anymore. And he ends up, shuffling off like a sad dog, and ends up, going back to the hotel where his wife works to pick up his kids, which he was supposed to take onto a ferry to go back to the city because their house is sold and it's empty. And they don't live there anymore. And his wife is pissed.
So he had a bad feeling, and he's just, he can't get it out of his head. So long story short, he comes to the realization that the readings that they were seeing could be the sign of an imminent avalanche. And by the time he alerts the research team and they kind of investigate, it's already too late. So they do hit the alert button, which gives everyone 10 minutes to get out of this valley before the tidal wave comes through.
And they have 10 minutes because in real life, on this particular mountain, that is a real mountain, that's how long it'll take for a tsunami to reach that particular town. And they have to get 80 meters above sea level in order to avoid such a tsunami.
Right.
Math and science.
Yeah. So they have the roads coming out of town that they have to try to get up and scramble up so that they are above the water level. So the dad and the one child are going up one hill. The mom and the son are stuck in a hotel. They end up going into the basement because they can't get out in time, and like a bomb shelter. And
the Flickhoff, I can't pronounce it unless I was reading it.
And neither one of these groups have a great time because
no,
the mom and son are stuck underwater in this, bomb shelter.
With Philippe one of the hotel patrons.
The dad does not get above the water level.
No.
And he has to strap into a car just to like have something to hold on to. And, the other passenger with him doesn't make it. And, he pulls through in the end, but just barely, just, by the smallest margin.
He ends up crawling out of the rubble, out of the wreckage after the tsunami hits. And, there's absolute destruction and bedlam everywhere. And he starts looking around for his daughter, who he ends up finding, who's perfectly fine. Meanwhile, he looks like he just climbed out of a slime pit. Not in good shape. After he realizes his daughter's okay, he decides to go try to find his wife and his son. He eventually makes it back to the hotel where she worked, after realizing she didn't make it onto a bus that ended up not making it out of safety. And eventually, out of anger of not being able to find them, he smashes his flashlight on some metal pipes, which vibrate and can be heard down in the bomb shelter where his wife and son are. And then, long story short, they end up finding him and everything's okay.
Yep.
The end.
The family unites, and the rescue workers have come, and you get the final shot of just looking down the valley where there's just nothing left.
Just absolutely destroyed. So that's the quick summary. We left out a little bit of the detail and the nuance, but you'll just have to watch it for yourself this time.
We'll spend our time on the discussion instead of the summary for this one.
All right, so let's talk about this film a little bit. So it's the second Norwegian film that we've watched on this channel, and I was immediately impressed by the cinematography of it, and just the quality of the shots. Clearly, they're using good cameras. Clearly, they're I say that like I would be expecting them to have third world film production capabilities, and I don't know why. Maybe just because you never really hear about any films from Norway. You don't think of them as having a film industry.
I think what it is with this film too is they take a lot of cues from kind of these natural disaster movies you've seen before, but they turn them into their own, local story. And it feels very grounded a lot of the time. I think that also adds to the cinematography angle of it. It's not like there are just shots of like the surrounding areas and stuff, but it's all very much focused on the people and like their movements, and like it's very smart how they do those shots, because it helps tell the story. It's not just like shots of scenery and it's pretty. It's like, okay, now we have video of the crevasse, and now we're going down the valley into the town where the next part of the story is.
They really find a great way to incorporate the natural beauty of the area into the story, so that the nature itself is absolutely a character in this, as well as the environment that they're in. And they don't necessarily like the movie that we watched a few months back about the trolls in Norway. That really showboated Norway's beautiful vistas. This one makes them they do a little bit of that, and they really pull back, and you really just focus on what it is about those places that we need to know for the story.
Right. Because really in the troll movie, they were more highlighting that there's all these different kinds of areas, where this was really focused on this one valley and just a couple areas in the valley, so you can get a sense of where you're at and like how it all fits together. So yeah, the cinematography was great, and then even the cinematography with the inside shots with the people and all that stuff, it was very good.
It really looked like it was just high quality is what I guess is another way to put it.
And like the transitions between the sets and the on location stuff was also very good. Like
seamless.
It wasn't jarring, even though like I could tell when, like the scenes with the wreckage and like the stuff like that.
Like you would know it's a soundstage, but it didn't look like a soundstage.
Yeah.
And that was nice.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the acting in this film. So it's all in Norwegian with subtitles. And there's a few words that translate over into English. the word fuck, the word shit, oh man. I think it was consequences. There's a few words that they use that are still English in just their everyday communication.
Or they're just similar enough in Norwegian.
Well, they match the subtitles.
Yeah.
It's almost kind of like how English just borrows from German and French and everybody else.
Yeah.
It seems like there's a little bit of that in Norwegian as well, which was kind of interesting. And not an ugly language by any means.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd call it a pretty language.
It's different.
But I don't know. I have had very little exposure to language. It's nice. It's not bad. It's nice. Not fantastic. It's not like French where it just is very sensual and voluptuous, but it's good, you know. But I also took German in high school. So. But that said, so the acting, so you really are, in this sense, you really are depending so much on the emotive qualities of their facial expressions, their movements, the tone of their voices. And all of that really conveyed so much.
And like family was believable family. You know, the way they were acted with each other. You know, it was a good little, you cared about them because the way they cared about each other. And then researcher people, even, you got that sense of like these people on a job together and they felt like very much that group.
All kind of sick of each other's shit, but they're still around.
And even like the lady at the hotel, like the coworker, how she was giving her trouble, like thanks for coming, like, for leaving me hanging there for a while.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Where have you been?
Yeah, good banter. Very down to earth, very grounded, as you said. Our main character, Christian, the geologist. I said this during the film, and I'm going to say it again here. He is the Norwegian Norman Reedus.
Yeah.
And he looks more like Norman Reedus the longer this movie goes on, because he gets increasingly just beat up and dirty and scraggly, and it looks like Norman Reedus on, say, season 4 of Walking Dead. Mm-hmm. He's just been through the wars by this point. And he's a very, very fine actor. An interesting pick for a lead in this film. Mm-hmm. But I don't really know what his star power would be back in Norway. It looked like a lot of these actors had done other work in Norway, but none of them had done a lot of work.
And I think the reason he works too in that role is because like this isn't a like big action hero super like, he's going to go in and save the day, but because he's like the biggest, strongest, whatever. It's just like he was a smart guy that knows what he's talking about to help as many people as he can. But he really struggles through all of these, trials and problems he has.
He's a scrawny bookworm.
Yeah. But that makes the character work.
It does.
Because that's when I look at this situation of this movie, that's why it's so believable to me, is he is literally just like me, like a guy who sits in a desk at work and, he's just thrust in the middle of the situation.
What I like about it too, so this is Norway's first disaster film ever, which is interesting. It took him until 2015 to make one, which also kind of leads me to believe that maybe their film industry is pretty young too. But they did this one so well because when you look at other so when you look at Hollywood blockbuster disaster movies, 2012. I don't know if you remember that one.
Ugh.
That was a terrible disaster movie, and it had huge sets, huge budget, awful CGI, and just, it was a very cringy disaster movie, and I feel like we get so many more of those than you do of something that's really believable and based on what is very likely to happen in this specific area of the world.
And this was more like, which even you mentioned, you not comparatively, but you mentioned earlier, like Earthquake that we had watched together.
Yeah, Charlton Heston from the 70s.
And it's more in that vein of, a group of people who are all kind of, going through this situation as if it were real.
Yeah, which I like seeing.
Yeah.
Granted, there are some moments in this film where they take some poetic license and, add a little bit of drama.
Yes. Especially at the end.
especially at the end. But I mean, what can you really expect? But what I find very interesting about this film is it's mostly talking. It's well into this movie before the quote unquote action really begins.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of talking on phones. There's talking in meetings. There's running and talking. There's some shouting. And some more talking. The movie is predominantly talking with more of the more interesting things in, I'd say, the latter 40%.
Yeah, they spend a lot of time building it up, and they are building up the town, the family, the situation with these mountains, and exactly what it is that they're afraid of.
And it's a nice slow build too, because so often you have 25 minutes, I guess, of exposition and groundwork before the movie begins.
Mm-hmm.
And we really were well an hour into it when it really kicked off in that regard. Yeah. But you didn't feel like you were being cheated of anything.
No.
And you didn't feel like it was slow paced either. It kept my attention for it.
It moved at a good clip too, because they did introduce all of the different locations earlier. So you did go to a couple different places, do some different things, and that kept it kind of fresh too.
Yeah, change of scenery, change of characters.
It wasn't like the first 20 minutes, 30 minutes took place in the research station or something like that,
Some variety in the scenery. So do we have any useless or extraneous characters in this film? I can name one. There's one guy at the research station.
Yeah.
Who's just eating and drinking a lot and doesn't really have many lines. And he just doesn't really need to be there.
Yeah, I could see that.
I mean, he ends up, being the first one to notice when all the alarms are really going off. But he could have been played by anybody else that was a part of that research station.
True.
Just not an interesting character.
Yeah, I mean, out of the characters that actually said anything, that's probably true.
But jumping back just to the acting for a little bit, all of these main people did their own stunts. Is that correct?
Yeah. Apparently they all did their own stunts, which included the parts where they're all underwater, which was, a decent part of the final act.
Yeah, quite a bit.
Of the mom, the son, and the main character, and one of the tertiary characters as well, all doing stints underwater. And apparently the main character he studied with, breath dive, free dive coaching,
dives, yeah,
and could hold his breath at 3 minutes by the time they were filming the scenes, which is pretty crazy.
It is crazy because there's also a scene where there's a scene early on when he gets in a car. Well, when the disaster strikes, they can't get out of the way of the tsunami. So he hops in a car with another lady and buckles up because what else are you going to do? And that car's spinning around and there's water in it. So even if it was just the camera moving around a vehicle, he was in a car underwater.
Yeah, even before I read the details afterwards,
yeah,
I was impressed with the scenes where they were swimming underwater.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
You could tell that those people were, I mean, it's not like they had body doubles. Like you could see their face while they were swimming.
Yeah.
So they did a really good job with those sections.
So soundtrack and editing. Very little music in this film. You only have one pop song, I guess. A Norwegian rap song, if you could call it that. And then you have just some orchestral music in the background. Not much else.
Yeah.
But you don't really feel like you're missing anything either. It's very functional to the story and to the mood.
It was just enough.
For some of the effects, the CGI was not terrible. It wasn't great. But it's best... the best thing about that is that there was so little of it.
Mm-hmm.
You really only see the CGI for the tsunami scene.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then a little bit in the aftermath. But predominantly it's all actual, physical lighting, physical effects. And with the lighting, Ken, did you notice something odd after the disaster?
Well, I noticed something that you kept mentioning was that there's little fires everywhere.
Everywhere.
and just the rubble and like in the hotel, and
So-
it didn't make a whole lot of sense, but it was great lighting.
Great lighting. It was all for atmosphere. That's one thing that I would say would, in a sense, would be a detraction from the quality of the film, is just because so much of it is based in reality and it's very well grounded. And then you just have random little fires just burning everywhere.
Which there would be some fires in the aftermath of a scenario like that, but
But
there was little fires literally every couple
they would
feet.
not be like small scented decorative fires.
Yeah, little
You know.
oil pots or whatever.
Yeah, you'd have. So that was a little distracting, especially in the hotel that had just been flooded out, and there's little bits of fire here and there in the hallways, just to give you just enough light to see what's going on.
Yeah,
That was kind of funny.
it's one of those things that's appropriate in almost every other disaster movie, but this one specifically, it doesn't make any sense because everything just got flooded.
It got flooded. It was a tsunami.
Yeah.
I mean, are there just little gas lines just everywhere?
I mean, when I saw Aftermath, this is whatever, anecdotal, but when I saw Aftermath videos of like Japan after a tsunami, I did not see fires everywhere.
I did not recall seeing any fires either.
I mean, I'm just saying, occasionally you'd have like a gas fire if like a gas line broke or like
Sure.
a propane tank or something like that, but that's not going to be like, everywhere.
I can understand there being the occasional fire. I can understand there being the occasional, big fire even.
Mm-hmm.
What if something major got ruptured and then ignited?
See, that would
I
have
can
been
get
better
that.
if they had one big fire burning in town.
That would make more sense.
Yeah.
Or a couple smaller fires. Just don't have like 200 little tiny ones
Yeah.
here and there. It was nice set dressing, but it was the wrong film for that.
Yeah.
Okay, now if it was an actual earthquake film, of which they did make a sequel, The Quake, in 2018, which we need to watch.
I'm sure there will be little fires everywhere.
I'll be disappointed if they're not. But it would be more funny too if instead of in the quake, instead of all the little fires, they have lots of little floodings. I could see that being a thing.
That would be great.
That would be great. They better have done it. We're gonna have to watch that soon.
Yeah, we'll find out. So if you couldn't tell from what we've talked about so far, I would say it's probably a good consensus that we both enjoyed this film.
I really enjoyed it quite a bit, and let's revisit our three primary criteria. Ken, was this film well written?
It was.
I would agree with that. They based it on a real life actual premise, which Norwegian scientists consider inevitable. They based it in a real place. They wrote realistic, believable characters. There's nothing over the top about any of that.
It didn't get too stupid. It got a little stupid, but not extreme.
I can't imagine a disaster movie that wouldn't get a little stupid.
Well, I mean, especially if you're focusing on a specific group of people.
Yeah.
It's like, well, they gotta
You
be, they gotta be your characters.
Yeah.
So
It's like, you got to have the mom and the kid and the boy and the father and, the little bit of extra drama that goes with that. So, okay, so was it well acted?
I believe it was.
I mean, doing your own stunts underwater and, being able to really convey a character's sincerity and not even knowing the language they're speaking, I'd say they definitely did.
Yeah.
And of course, or maybe my ignorance of their language makes them seem like better actors than they are, but the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah, I doubt it. I
doubt
don't think
it.
that's the case.
I don't think so either. Okay, well produced, Ken?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Great views. Great overall set design for the inside parts. You always have a great feel of where you are, where you're going, what the situation is. No shaky cam.
No shaky cam. Thank God, no shaky cam. Only CGI when you absolutely needed it. Yeah.
But like even when they used the CGI, they weren't afraid to just hold on it. It wasn't like, where they the camera was...
It did hold up to scrutiny.
The camera wasn't, viewing away when something happened or, like we see with some movies.
Like movies directed by Has.
Yes.
Yes, where you can never focus on anything for long enough to see how bad it really is. I'm going to slag that guy every single opportunity I get.
But yes, the production quality was top notch.
Yeah. So this film definitely meets the 3 criteria. So we definitely recommend this film. You should definitely check it out too. And we're 2 for 2 with Norwegian films.
Yeah. I mean, I would rate this up with many of the good American disaster movies.
Absolutely. And it's a great spin on this specific type of disaster has never really been covered before. We've had meteors, we've had, Godzilla type monsters, or even Godzilla himself. We've had earthquakes.
I'm sure there's a tsunami, like ocean tsunami movie somewhere, but this is a very, very specific kind of,
This is a very specific situation that has not been covered before. And that's what I like about it.
And very grounded in reality. Not just like, an asteroid hit the Earth and like
a giant tsunami, like 2 miles high, engulfs the planet. Yeah.
This was like a real thing.
You just had to get up to a certain level and you're going to be fine. And if you're below that, then you're in trouble.
Yep. So, yeah, that was The Wave.
The Wave. That's a wrap for tonight's episode here at the O&M Stockroom. We are your hosts, Brian McGarry
and Ken O'Malley.
If you enjoyed this segment of Complimentary Cinema, more episodes can be found at omstockroom.com, along with links to our Patreon page and various streaming outlets. Thank you for listening, and we'll be back next Wednesday with an all-new episode.